Hello, welcome everyone to this month's Cloud Foundry Community Advisory Board CAB meeting. This Wednesday is the 18th of March. I hope everyone is safe and healthy and has everything you need as we hunker down for COVID-19. Let's get started. I just blew my surprise there at the end. Let's start with Swarna, who's going to tell us a little bit about what the Cloud Foundry Foundation has going right
now. Sure. Chip is also here, so I will let him add anything he would like to add, but we just wanted to make everyone aware that we understand these are truly, like when we say these are uncharted territories and uncharted waters, these are literally those. So we are, at least as of now, we are continuing as planned for Cloud Foundry Summit in Austin. However, we also realize that the city of Austin has a lot of restrictions, at least until for the next 5 or 6 weeks, which still puts us out of that window. But we will be monitoring the situation and making updates on that page that I added a link to the notes here in the notes here, but also we will send out notifications to the community as and when we get to know of more updates or things as well. So please do stay tuned. Please do take a look at the emails whenever we send out. But in the meantime, we understand, again, a lot of things are going and it's really hard for us to focus as well. So we extended the deadline until the 3rd of April. It was supposed to end this week, I think this weekend, but yeah, we extended it until the April 3rd so that folks will have a lot more time to think about all your abstracts and proposals and submissions. If you have any kind of questions or even concerns with anything related to Summit, please do not hesitate to either post the question on the Summit Slack channel or drop us a note, either Deb Giles, who is our events lead, or any of us at the foundation. You can even post it on CFF Forum, which is the newly minted Slack channel, to ask any kind of questions for the foundation. So please don't hesitate. But yeah, please stay healthy and stay safe.
now.
That was awesome. That was awesome, Swarna. But I want to add a couple things, Troy, to maybe reinforce what Swarna was saying. So first, there was a question. We hold the an Ask Me Anything call for our member contacts, and there was a great question that was asked yesterday. What's the risk of canceling, right? The choice that we made to attach CF Summit to the Open Source Summit North America, and then similarly for later in the year in Dublin, means that organizationally we have a very, very limited financial exposure there. So we're not approaching this as a financial question at all. We are today relying on the Linux Foundation to make choices for kind of the larger event that we're attached to. They have an epidemiologist, ex-CDC person who's consulting with them, in addition to working very, very closely with both the venue as well as the city of Austin to make calls on this. So that's some of the context about the event, right? Like, we're going to think about people, community, safety, and if it seems like it is safe, maybe people are going to want to get out, right? So we're trying to just play that loose right now. However, think about submitting talks, even though there's a likelihood that we're not going to hold an in-person event, because we are absolutely going to, if necessary, pivot to some type of virtual format. And there's a ton of amazing technical content. It won't be like, staring at a video feed all day. We're going to find ways to break it up and spread it out over a course of days. So your talk submission ideas are just as valuable, regardless of the format that we end up getting the community together in. So don't let possibility of delay your own efforts to get a good talk submission pulled together. Does that make sense to anybody? And are there any questions about what we're doing about that?
That's great, Chip. One of the things I value most about the CF Summit is the Contributor Summit. So maybe we could organize also, if we end up going virtual, some topic specific contributor meetings, just to get the lay of the land as well. So not just presentations, but actual discussions.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
been really helpful.
Absolutely, Trey. That's that's one of the things that's sort of in the mix that I would say is probably a higher priority than talks. Depending on who you are, whether you're an end user or whether you're deeply involved in the development, there's kind of a different angle to take at what's the value. So I hear you there. As contributors, active collaboration happens all the time, right? But the get together in person is extremely valuable. So yeah, we'll actually be reaching out to the community once we understand the kind of the tool chain options that are being presented to us and what their capabilities are. Then we'll be able to talk about different formats, different schedule ideas, how we can craft this into a period of time where each audience gets the most benefit from it. It's a good point, Trey.
Cool. Thanks very much. And thanks very much for extending that deadline. I know I was swamped with other things, and I'm grateful for a little bit more time to prepare stuff. If that's all from the foundation, let's hear from the PMC. Thanks, Eric, for getting some notes in. I think if somebody wants to share the actual agenda document to add things to, or if it's changed since I've taken the snapshot. But I'll hand it over to you, Eric, for Runtime PMC.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Happy to cover a few highlights over the last month or so. I think one of the major ones is we accepted the incubation proposal for kubectl, and that team has now released version 1.0. So congratulations to all of you, and give it a spin. Looks like it's got a lot of great capabilities. I think it's a great solution right now for getting CF running on top of K8s. Among the other teams, I know Relevant is doing some planning for the next major version of CF deployment. And they have a few notes, I think in the PMC notes, if not on the mailing list yet, about some of the changes that are upcoming there. And then they're also focusing a lot of energy on CF for K8s and integrating a lot of the other component teams' changes into that project. And Cappy in particular has been working with Relevant to get their integration with KPack for cloud native build pack staging into that. To hit a few communication snags, but otherwise is proceeding pretty smoothly. And we're all excited to get that first integration of cloud native build packs into this other K8s focused distribution of CF. UAA is also continuing to advance with their Kubernetes packaging of UAA. And I think they're right now focused on refining some of the secret management in terms of the configuration. So beyond doing that initial lift of some of the Bosch release properties into Kubernetes configuration. Networking is also integrating into CF for K8s, and they've been making more progress in terms of offloading some of the network-wide responsibilities to Istio and its sidecars. And so Shannon's even recommending to the other component teams that they start switching back to plain HTTP communication as one mode, so that they can let the Istio service mesh take over transparent mutual TLS on the container network for those components. And then we're also getting more telemetry integrated into CF for K8s. Aggregators proceeding with some of their planned changes for the log transport and consolidation components in CF for K8s. And so we're getting app logs plumbed out. And they're also working on container metrics, getting those exposed. And last but not least, Diego is doing some pretty deep evaluation of a really fascinating PR from the community that is tweaking how the auctioneer does placement of containers to more heavily weight or favor Diego cells that have a lower Bosch index. So the company that has contributed this has found that they're able to get some significant space saving by trying to fit containers on those lower index cells. And so that leaves the higher index cells more open for bigger workloads, and then they can scale those down a little bit. So again, it's going to be an optional change to Diego, but assuming that it works out really well, it could be a very interesting optimization for that kind of placement, especially for operators that are managing a wide range of container sizes. Anyway, I think those are some of the major highlights for the past month. And I think I see some updates for the extensions PMC coming into the Google Doc right now.
Okay. Have we got Bosch PMC represented today? Don't think so.
Yeah, I don't see Marco or Morgan on the line.
All right, then Max, if you could.
Yes. So thank you, Troy. So the update is a easy update. Is that I don't have any update, and mainly it's because last month I had some personal time off due to passing of family member, but that meant that I took a couple of weeks off and I had to cancel our monthly meeting. But okay. The meeting this month is coming up next week. So it's always scheduled at the end of the month so that I can give you the update for the next month. So that means in April, I should have some update for you.
Okay. And for those who want to attend the extensions meeting, is that an open meeting?
Yes, it is an open meeting. I'll put a link on the agenda.
Awesome.
Since that way people can just click on it. Thank you, Troy.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So that's all we got from project highlights this month. Let's move on to something I'm super excited about, which is the CF for K8's demo. Those of us who've been in the Kubernetes SIG meeting know all about this, and I've just written a blog post, which hopefully will come out soon, sort of describing the different tracks we're on as a community to deliver not only Kubernetes native components, but also Kubernetes, what we're calling Kubernetes idiomatic distributions of Cloud Foundry. And most of the work from the upstream teams is integrating into this project called CF for K8, which Sai is in charge of as head of the relevant team. Would you like to take it over?
Yes, sir. Do you want to unshare so I can share my screen?
You got it.
Awesome. So hopefully you all can see my screen. I created a small deck to give more structure to the demo. So one recommendation I have is to you all to ask questions as you go through the demo in the Zoom chat room. Once I walk through the demo, I will answer the questions as long as I have time. If not, I'll copy paste the questions from chat into a Word doc. And then I'll answer the unanswered questions and share that widely in the CF4K's channel. So awesome. All right, so I'm gonna put it on present mode. So we started the journey around November of last year when teams reached out to us for help with their integration efforts for CF on K8. As they were building capabilities on K8's components, they were using some hybrid Bosch and K8's deployments, and it got increasingly difficult for them to build and ship their components. After our research, we had an inception in December on identifying what are the urgent versus non-urgent needs. We submitted a proposal in January 2019. We got some great feedback, and we had our first repository created in Feb 2019, the first commit, if you may. We released the first release that we had for users to try was CF push Docker app only, and here we are in March with CF push build packs demo. So it is phenomenal to see the progress we made in just 2 to 3 months. So I'm pretty proud to be part of this journey and bring you all this demo.
Hey, Sai, just you for the latter January, February, and March, those are actually 2020 dates, right?
Sorry, that's right.
Oh yeah, no worries. Just want to make
still
sure
living in the
Yeah.
Still writing 2019 on all my slides.
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries.
Sorry,
Oh.
2019. This is what happens when you copy paste things.
Can we go back
Also,
to
2020,
2019?
2020 can actually go to hell now. So I
Yeah,
think it's
that's right.
perfectly fine.
I'll use that excuse. I hate 2020. We go back in time. All right. Cool. So go on to the next slide. So what is C4K? What's this made of? So I just thought maybe I'll sort of give a lay of the land. Here's sort of a high level under the hood for CF4K. The green boxes designate the core CF components, and the yellow boxes designate the dependencies. All right, so there are two sort of namespaces, if you may. One is the app namespace, which is where the CF apps are deployed, and the system namespace generally contains the Cloud Foundry components and the dependencies. Few notable things I would like to highlight. We are using KPack to stage apps, as Eric mentioned in the previous in the updates that we're using KPack, which utilizes cloud native build packs to build images in a consistent and reproducible way. KPack requires a registry to store these app images. Hence, we also need to provide an app registry, which you see down here. We are using Istio to manage intercomponent communications, security, policy enforcement, and so on. From a lifecycle standpoint of managing CF itself, we are using cap to manage the Cloud Foundry lifecycle. The best analog is these are sort of the boss CLI deploy command that we used to doing. And we're using YTT for our templating needs. More documentation is forthcoming on the different parts and the role they play in providing the CF experience. But I just thought maybe it's a good time to just show you all the parts that we have today that make up CF4K. Awesome.
I got a question from Ono, if you've got time for it. Do I understand correctly that all apps from all orgs and spaces would be put in one big namespace?
I believe yes. That is how it is today. It may change in the future, but it will be in the same namespace.
Currently, I believe that's because that's how Irene does it, and it could do it differently in the future.
Awesome. All right, so I'll jump into a demo. Some disclaimer: I'm using a branch that is yet to be merged to master, which is very close. We are updating documentation, adding some known issues, so folks are aware when we actually do merge it. I expect this to be merged in the next day or two, but for this demo, I'm just playing off of that the branch, and so it's going to be a Wild West. So let's see how it goes. Awesome. So I'll switch to my term. Can you all see my?
Yep.
Awesome. So I got just to verify, I have kubectl get namespaces just to show you that this is QKate install that has no CF on it. And then on here, I am in CF4K. As I mentioned, I'm using the branch right now. So I'm going to go ahead and run through steps. So a few things, I've written down the steps here, which is very similar to the steps that are on our documentation on the repository. So the first one is the domain name. So this is your CF system domain. You're probably already aware of that. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And then I mentioned to you all the KPack requires a registry to host the CF apps. So I'm using the Google container registry for this demo. You could use any publicly known registry like dockerhub.com if you want to, but I'm using that. Great. So we have this script called hack generate. What this does really is generate an install file. And what this is doing is taking in those parameters and creating an install YAML with values. Again, this should be in the documentation. So I'm going to create a brand new. And if I open that up, investigate, say B15, as you can see, it generates the password and few certificates for communication, intercomponent communication. So these are some of the CRDs and the keys it generates. It uses Bash CLI. That's the only dependency that we have for Bash CLI, because Bash has this nice little tool to generate certs. But you can use other tools if you want, if you don't want to use Bash CLI. Great. And then I think I've made a check. So I'm going to go ahead and install the script. So all I'm going to do is 15. Click on it, and then I'm going to put a watch on this to see how the pods are created. So there are no resources found. As you can see, cap, which I mentioned a moment ago, tells you that all of the resources it is about to install. Similar to the Bash deploy, where it tells you what resources or what VMs it's going to install. As you can see, it will tell you that it is about to install 241 new objects. This will take a few minutes. I can potentially see get cap. Thank you, Troy. The way I believe it installs, it starts with the cluster level resources. So like you see, it's installing role bindings and namespaces, and then it starts creating the actual CRDs the next up, and then after that it starts creating pods and so on and so forth. So there are certain order it tries to do, and you can also actually add conditional ordering if in cap through annotations. That's the if there are any specific use cases of ordering that you may have.
I just so that I'm sure I understand that. That means if you know you need to deploy certain resources before others and they have to be ready, you can do that with cap?
I believe so, yes. We are at this stage right now. We are not adding any specific ordering other than I believe cap has implicit ordering of CRDs first. But you could potentially do that. For example, you could have the UAA be the first one and then CAPI be the second, because CAPI depends on UAA. You could actually order that way. Ideally, we don't want to do that. At least in CF in Kate's world, it's things eventually converge to working. So, but it is a possibility.
Cool. There they come up.
Yep, they are. I'm only watching the CF system. If I did come out of this and watched, let's say, just other, you should see, for example, there is now Istio system. And if I did kubectl get pods and provide a namespace, you should see that that already created Istio pods in there. And one thing that you may have noticed is cap actually waits till all of the resources are available for it to run. So unlike kubectl apply, it will just apply and exit right away. So very much like how you do Bash deploy, it won't exit till it actually has all of the known resources running.
And speaking of someone who's used kubectl a lot, these crash loop backoffs are kind of normal as something crashes to consensus. And you know, this is where the ordering can help, but shouldn't be relied on, because every component that's launched to Kubernetes should be able to recover and connect to the other components properly.
That's right. Yeah, I think this is some of those efficiencies we can gain by talking to the component teams. What are your init requirements? What are you looking at? And so on and so forth. Okay, so cap is finished. So we can see that it has installed all of the components. We should have now multiple namespaces, but there should be one thing I want to call out is a CF workload namespace that I mentioned. We have CF system, and we also have Istio system as a separate namespace. We also have kpack running. Great. So I need to configure the load balancer IP, so I could connect to using a well-known address. So let me just check out the IP address. So I'm going to go ahead and update the DNS. Let me just share my whole screen. So we are using GKE right now as for our Kubernetes hosted needs. But we are planning to think more around using other distros as well. So here's my sort of domain address. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that. So I could use that to connect to CFCLI. And then I can just watch and see it propagate. So we'll give it a few seconds to.
Now this is just standard upstream Istio you're running for the gateway? For the
Yes.
Okay. Feel free others to ask questions. I don't want to hog size time. This is the first time I've seen this demo.
Yeah, so I believe if I did get bed pods from Istio namespace or services. Should be able to see other services. And the Istio is one of the load balancer that I'm interested in.
It has been applied now.
I'm sorry?
It has been applied now. Oh,
yep.
it's back.
Yep, it did.
Oh,
awesome.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah, I believe it takes some time to propagate. So, okay, so we can now go ahead and attach, connect our CFCLI. So that should be able to do it. I have to look up the password so I can quickly take a look at the install values that I used, which was 15, which is here. And then I can type in cf auth admin and then paste the, great. Then I'll try to create in one line, just the org and the space and target to that org and space. So this should be pretty familiar to you all. So there's one caveat here. We have to enable this feature flag. CAPI is working to remove this requirement, but we'll add this to as a known issue. They have a story working on doing this, but this enables us for us to internally for CAPI to use the image that kpack produces and to schedule that using Irony. Yeah. So there's some technical details, but just for this demo, we just have to use this, but this will go away in the future. And finally, I'm gonna push an app. So I'm using an app from the CF acceptance test called Catnip. And if I just did Oops, that's not what I meant. Just see under the hood what that app is. As you can see, it's a Go app. And now I'm going to go ahead and say push that, and hopefully this should just work. I'm going to watch the workloads. See if it actually, you're going to see some of these error messages fail to retrieve as we are still integrating today. So this is going to be one of those known issues, belongs in the known issues list, but should not impact your CF push.
Can you actually get those logs from the Kubernetes pod directly?
You could, yes.
Okay.
I believe so, yes. You can use capo, you can directly use kubectl to apply to get the logs from that pod. With cap, you can do something like wildcard characters. So you don't have to know the pod name. You can just simply say capi star and follow, and it will get all the logs from merged through all of those pods into one stream.
Yeah, there's similar tools like K9S is also a really good ncurses.
I love K9S.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. I just got introduced to yesterday, and I was fascinated by how awesome it is. It's just taking longer than I would have anticipated, but I'm hoping it. Yep. I can tell you all it worked yesterday, so.
You can always dig in the logs.
You can trust me on this.
I am actually super impressed by how fast all of this came up. If those of you have poked at kubectl, there's a lot of pre-start shots, a lot more going on, but would be familiar with, and we can see the pod is coming up now.
Yep. So, all right, so we can see, it took about some time, but the pod is running, and then I'm going to go ahead and curl it, which is the catname dot, the domain that it told me. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that should return catnip. Yo, all right. So we got our CF push with build packs working. Awesome.
How far along are we from being like Kate's native, so to speak, and enabled? In other words, like assuming very small application workloads, like how far are we from like being, let's say, production ready for like a couple apps kind of idea?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I'm gonna go switch to my.
And I got another question that may be related.
Yeah.
So ask that one up front as well. And like, can you explain the relationship between this kubectl Irene so that everybody is aware?
This, yeah. So pin that question for 1 second. Let me answer the first one, which is where are we and how long towards 1.0? I think that's the question, right? The first one.
Yeah.
Yep. So just a quick note on that. So what is the integration setup today, and what does a contribution flow workflow look like? So on the left, what you see is it's the workflow that we are using today for the core component teams to contribute to CF4K. First, it's very manual, and we have seen inefficiencies, but it works and gets us closer to the alpha release that we plan to cut as soon as we have the CF build packs fully merged into master and tested. So the contributing teams are using CF4K's artifact both in their local and their CI environments. Once they're ready, they build the Docker images and submit a PR to CF4K's repository, which can contain config changes and image digest changes. And then we run through our own integration, and if it's successful, we merge it to master. So if you pull from master, you should have a stable CF4K's install. And a high-level peek into on the right, how our integration setup is in general. So we are at the moment, we are testing this on GKE only, but we plan to expand that in the future to 1 or 2 more case distribution perhaps AKS or EKS. Up until now, we were just using one test, which is CF push Docker app. But again, we plan to change that as we incorporate new capabilities, especially with new build packs. We may start using the smoke test that we packaged today as a way to validate the new changes, and then move to cats as new capabilities get added. And then looking forward, so this answers the question towards, looking forward in terms of 1.0. So first, what you're seeing here is the release integrations roadmap. The component teams have their own roadmaps and timelines for CF capabilities. So as component teams make them available, we will integrate and ship them throughout this journey. So what you see here is not exhaustive, but is very much focused around release integrations sort of roadmap, if you may. So you saw talks about the upcoming alpha release, which will have the CF push with build packs available. There are some caveats which we will and known issues that we'll add in the release notes. You will be able to HTTP route that app, and then you can hook your external app registry to host your CF apps. Next up, as soon as we're done with that, we will start thinking about running cats in our pipeline, see which ones we can run, and the ones we cannot, we'll have to wait and see as new capabilities get added. We will unlock each test. And then we want to validate, as I mentioned, another distro. Another big sort of initiative we want to build is the contribution model, so we can consume component releases. So this is where we want to consume the releases from contributing teams, integrate, validate, and ship. Very similar to what you expect from CF deployment. And then the future is where we want to go more towards operator concerns. For example, how does the upgrade look like for n-1 to n? How do we package smoke tests so that they can validate these upgrades? What would the world look like with setting up ingress certificates? How do we rotate those? And then so on and so forth. So we are not there yet, but that's our hope, is that as we march towards in the next coming months, we will address some of the enterprise readiness capabilities. So for now, it's going to be an alpha. I would love you all to take a swipe at it, take it for a spin. Yeah, so I'm going to move to the next. So how do you get started? It's available at this repository. There are docs to deploy to a hosted K8s cluster, and also to deploy to a local cluster. So please go take a moment, try it out. Love to get your feedback. As I mentioned, you can reach out to CF4K's channel with bugs or feedback. You can submit issues or PRs to the CF4K's repository, or you can even sign up for direct feedback. A plan to send out a Google form if you're all interested in providing your feedback. Especially if you have K8s, you're using K8s in any capacity. We would love to hear your feedback on how you're thinking about running CF on that. Yeah. So, and that's about it. And I can take questions. And one question was about kubecf. Can you repeat that question again?
Sure. Just for the audience in general, can you explain the differences in this effort versus kubecf? Are they related? Do they tie in? And how does Irene tie in as well?
So I have Troy here, who's running that project, but you want to take a swipe at it?
I totally want to take a swipe at it, because it's the subject of, it's the partial subject of the blog post I wrote about the incubation of kubecf, which will come out pretty soon. And it's something we've been talking a lot about in the CF for K8s, or the Kubernetes SIG meetings, I should say. So when we met in Philadelphia, we had conversations about, because of course, SUSE and IBM and SAP have been working on sort of containerized Cloud Foundry in a different stream for a while. about how to get to the optimal goal of a really, truly, not only Kubernetes native, but a Kubernetes idiomatic place for Cloud Foundry, so that Cloud Foundry is seen as a necessary part of a Kubernetes cluster for making it into a platform. And so we had two different ways of going about this. One was that the component teams upstream that are making the parts of Cloud Foundry have to understand Kubernetes deeply and have to make Kubernetes native components from the start and make them what we're starting to call them Kubernetes idiomatic, using the parts of Kubernetes that are really good at delivering cloud native applications. Parallel to this, especially for SUSE, because we've got a distribution that is running on Kubernetes that is based on BOSH releases, we have to have continuity with the extensive BOSH community. So our team has been, the kubecf team has been pursuing this way of consuming the BOSH releases that Relent already puts out and combining them into a certifiable, foundation certifiable release that you can actually run in production. So what the plan is for kubecf, so they're parallel projects. Over time, the plan with kubecf is to replace the BOSH releases with Kubernetes native artifacts from the upstream component teams, and gradually make that more like what you're seeing with CF for K8s. On the other side, you're going to see CF for K8s complete more of the functionality that you would see out of the box right now in kubecf. So we're both going to the same place, which is a distribution of Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes, or maybe two distributions of Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes. Might have some slight differences in how they are deployed, but the components will be the same. So you might always install kubecf with Helm, and you might always install what, I don't know if it's decided yet, but it looks like the K14s toolchain, like cap and YTT for CF for K8s. Did that summarize it for you, Sai? Is that kind of your view on the world?
Yeah, I think so. I think long term it remains to be seen that they will converge or they will remain different. And that's something we will have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. So
are there any notable architectural style differences in the two of them from the outset?
Right now there are. Right now, kubecf consumes BOSH releases and has the CF operator, or the work that Quark's team has done to manage it in place on the Kubernetes cluster. It also ships Diego as an optional thing, which I don't think CF for K8s ever will. We ship alternatively Irene, but we're pulling in the same Irene code. And ultimately, we'll pull in the same stagers and the same version of CAPI and the Kubernetes native version of UAA. So the architectures will converge. It may not be exactly the same, but they should both be certifiable. They should both be, from an end user's perspective, an identical CF experience.
That is absolutely fantastic to hear. Just like that, I also am certifiable. Oh, wait, no. Thanks for the answers, I appreciate it. It helps a lot with context.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Julian. I'm just wondering on the logging front. So CF logs isn't working yet. Is CF tail working for you?
Yeah, so logging in general, we are working with the logging team right now. So last I checked, the logging was not working due to some log cache complexities. But we hope to, once the CF build pack apps go in, we hope to have the logs, focus on the logs and see ways we can resolve any issues, any pending issues.
It only works with one log cache, right? It's just not AA at the moment. That's what I read in the issue.
Yeah, so CF log, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna, I have a little bit of context on this because I've been trying to get this also to work in how I've been trying it out. So, right, CF4Kates is including only log cache as the log egress API. And I believe that the latest version of the CF-CLI will connect to that correctly. There's a minor bug in the CAPI artifacts that are currently in CF4Kates, where they are providing the wrong URL for log cache. It doesn't have the HTTPS scheme in front. And so depending on what Relent pulls in from the CAPI team in terms of their artifacts as part of the KPAC integration, they may end up picking up the correction to that that was recently just merged. So I would hope in a few days or a week or something that all get resolved, and the latest version of the CF-CLI will get logs from log cache.
Right. Yeah. So that would explain why you get that blank protocol error when pushing with the latest CLI. But my impression was that the CFTail plugin for the CF-CLI is a cheat to work around that. Only when I tried it myself, I didn't get any log messages out. When I was sitting with Dave Walter looking at his screen, he was getting too many log messages because it was also pulling in the Istio stuff. But I'm just kind of wondering what normal state of play is for that.
Yeah, I think CFTail will work. It may be a little less picky about the URL that it expects. And I think there is a lot of noise from the Istio sidecars. And in particular, I think a lot of that is coming from the Envoy sidecar on the app side, handling traffic and managing configuration. So I know one thing that the networking team has is on their roadmap is reducing the amount of noise that thing generates, because it is perhaps helpful if you want to understand what that Envoy is doing, but a little excessive compared to wanting to get your app logs.
Yeah, I was just about to say that CFTail works, but yeah, it definitely has a lot of noise from Envoy.
Very good. Thank you.
This is Stefan speaking. Let's assume CF4Kates matures and gets the cuts working, etc., and comes into a regular release cycle. Will that be somehow coordinated with the releases of CF deployment, especially when it comes to software like Cloud Controller, where there's a lot of development and with that comes some regressions? Will we at least find the same problems on both sides of the world, or what's the idea here?
I can speak to the release integration part of it. So to understand your question, you're saying, are we going to synchronize the releases between CF deployment and CF4Kates together for every cloud, for every release? Is that right?
Yeah, so that you at least ship the same version of the Cloud Controller software, the same version of the CAPI API at the end of the day to both delivery channels.
Yeah, it's to be determined. Yet we have to see how we have to talk to the teams and understand. As I mentioned, we're looking towards the contribution workflow, and during that workflow, we will try to figure out how will the releases be consumed, whether they'll be consumed by both CFD or CF4Kates or both. So I don't have the answer to that question yet.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
It's a good question, though.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Why is this community so awesome?
Isn't that great? I'm really impressed. I'm totally hats off for a great demo, and I was especially impressed with how fast those pods come up. So the packaging work that the upstream teams are doing on these new Kubernetes native components is great.
Yeah, I just had the privilege to show it. It was really the team work and the community and all the contributing teams just been phenomenal in terms of trying to get this working with one motive. So I've never, like I said before, pretty proud of this journey with the singular focus of getting this working.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that's all we have on the agenda for today. I just wanted to close with what is becoming a new Cloud Foundry mantra for me and a sort of a life thing. Thanks all for joining this week. Please take care of yourselves. please take care of those people you love. And it's going to be a rocky ride with COVID-19. Do your best to, self-isolate and stay safe. And while we're all working with each other online, please remember to be kind, because that's one of the best things we can do for one another right now. With that heavy thought, thanks all very much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks for running it,
Bye-bye.
Troy.